at that moment in our relationship, I don't think I would have been like that sure that I would not leave you.
The thing that would bother me is not you being entangled with somebody else. That in and of itself doesn't bother me.
What bothers you?
Why?
What if you got hit by a bus and you became a vegetable? Would I stay with you?
So would you?
We ride together.
We die together.
I think I would.
You're just saying that so
No,
that
'cause
TikTok doesn't get mad at you.
Welcome to this week's podcast. It's not all black and white. My name is Sarah. I'm black.
I'm Matthew. I'm white. This is the Interracial Couple Podcast, and welcome to this week's episode. Obviously, there's been something quite a bit in the popular news, which has been Will and Jada Pinkett Smith and their entanglement.
I don't think it was their entanglement. I think we should say Jada's entanglement.
Jada's entanglement.
Correct.
Which has become a bit of a fun buzzword for the social media verse. And we got a good chuckle out of it.
We did. I actually watched. You sent it to me, the confession on Red Table, and I watched it. And then it got me thinking. I was like, what would we do if one of us was in an entanglement?
Which brought us right back to a conversation that we had early on.
Yeah, when we first started dating.
Mm-hmm. And I knew very early on that there was actually nothing that you could do that would make me leave you. Now, that's also different if you're like, I don't love you anymore. I don't want to be with you. Even still, which, for the record, early on in our relationship, you did plan on leaving at one point.
Leaving you?
Yeah.
I did?
You did. You don't remember coming over to break up? This was before we moved in together.
Yeah, I did break up with you.
Yeah, you came to break up with me, and I wasn't really having it. But then again, you also had certain needs that you felt weren't being met by me, and it was early enough in the relationship to say, well, maybe this is just not the way to go.
Yeah, I just feel that when you're starting a relationship, the couple should accept or agree on certain terms. Guess I will call it terms and conditions about what I want for the future.
You mean you shouldn't just kind of scroll through and click accept without reading?
No.
Okay, you should actually have a conversation about it so you really know what...
Yeah, like what long terms look like, and if you're willing to like be okay with like what I'm planning for the future. Yeah. And one of those moments was like before we started sleeping together and having sex, we decided that we're going to get an STD test.
Absolutely. It's a very intelligent protocol. Before we have unprotected sex, let's go get an STD check.
I know. And then I made this joke because you got tested first.
I did.
You got tested before I got tested.
And I got tested first. And as soon as I got my test, I think we started having unprotected sex.
Did we?
Before you had yours. But I can't, this is already 3.5 years ago, and I don't know what I had for breakfast yesterday, so I can't swear to it. But, because I think everybody who's in a relationship for a while, even if, there's always those things, particularly if you're just getting into a relationship, you're like, I'm going to be really careful. And then sometimes in the heat of the moment, you're not as careful as you really should have been.
Yeah.
Right.
But I think you're right. I think after we got your test results back, we did have unprotected sex. And then I made this joke like, what if I go get tested and I have HIV?
And I basically told you, like, that's not, if you gave me an STD, and we were also kind of joking a little bit about, like, not joking, but projecting, like, in the future, what happens in the future if one of us gave the other an STD? That, in and of itself, would not be a reason for me to leave you.
I know, and I was shocked because I was like, if you had AIDS, I don't think I would, at that moment in our relationship, I don't think I would have been, like, that sure that I would not leave you.
Yeah. Well, one thing that we've talked about in the past, which is that's a big deal. Like, I might leave you for, like, unfairly leaving more of the cooking to me, but I wouldn't necessarily leave you for you giving me HIV because bigger things for some reason are just like easier for me to deal with than little things. It's a weird quirk that I have. Like, like a major life event is not a major deal. to me in comparison to the little things. And I think part of that is because I feel like little things are things that I can control. Not true. You can't, a lot of times you can't control the little things, and big things are things that you can't control. So therefore, if I can't control somebody dying, I can't control myself getting some sort of disease or some sort of illness. If I can't control it, then I shouldn't be worried about it. But I feel like I should be able to control, like, somebody replying to me in time so that I can make some decision or whatever that happens to be. So I think that's part of why I have this tendency to make a bigger deal out of little things, and big things are not that big of a deal.
Yeah. Anyway, my test came back and they were negative. So I did not have HIV, but it was nice.
It didn't have to be an issue.
It wasn't an issue, but it was nice knowing that if they had come positive, you'd not have left me for it.
Well, that would definitely not be a reason. I mean, I think also in today's day and age, in America, there are very few STDs that you can't actually still live a amazing, healthy life with.
True.
You know, and also if you gave it to me, here's the other, if you had given me an STD, then I might as well just stay with you because now, like, I don't have to worry about like breaking that to somebody else. Or it would not impact my sex life with you, but it would with somebody else potentially.
True.
So that was really all I was thinking about, is how is this going to impact my sex life?
Yeah. And then the question after I watched Jada's clip last week was like, if I got into an entanglement.
An entanglement?
Do you think we would break up over an entanglement?
I never, ever, ever for 1 second thought that. I would. And that's also just something about me too, is that I'm not a jealous person. You're not either.
But I just have to say, like, I don't think I could say the same thing. Like, if you were in an entanglement, I think I would leave you.
You would?
Yeah, I think so.
Well, what does that mean? Does that mean an entanglement where it's like I'm in this entanglement and I can't get out of it?
Let's not call it an entanglement, because what it is an affair.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if you had an affair, because I don't know about it, I would leave you.
So here's the thing. So when we first got together, one of the things that we said is that if you were going to be with somebody else, I'm not going to leave you because of that. And so therefore you can tell me, and also therefore it's not an affair. I might not like it. I might flip my shit, whatever it is. But like, I just feel like it's...
Okay, let's back up.
Okay.
I think that was like when we first started dating. And I feel like over the last year, it has changed.
I think so too.
Yeah.
The level of commitment that we are in has changed a little bit, but also how we want to commit.
Correct.
Right.
Has changed.
So I think at the beginning it was like not that big of a deal.
Yeah. But also like in the beginning, we were not in like this committed. It was don't feel like we just ever dated to just date. There was like more of like, I don't know, not exactly open to relationship, but more open to being with other people. But I think
very much open to the possibility, if not open. Yeah.
Correct. I don't know. Do you think that has changed in the last year?
I think it has changed, because I think one of the things that shifted for us is not whether or not it's a problem. Like if you went and you had an entanglement, for example, the thing that would bother me is not you being entangled with somebody else, would not be you having an affair or sleeping with somebody else. That in and of itself doesn't bother me.
What bothers you?
Why?
Wait. But what would bother you?
No, that's why. That's what would bother me.
Okay.
You know, it's like the why of it would bother me. Not the impact. And this is kind of like my initial thought of this years ago. I was a teenager, I think, or early 20s, and I read this fascinating book by this activist who walked from India to Moscow to Berlin to London, and then took like a boat or something to New York, and then walked to Washington, D.C. as a protest against nuclear proliferation. And he had really built up a big following. This is long before social media or whatever, right? And he was in Paris and he met this reporter who was like, and they just hit it off. And she had been married for many years, and she was so into him. And this thing started to heat up, and she said, "Excuse me, I need to make a phone call." And while he was in the room, she goes and calls her husband and says, "I'm with this guy. I've met this guy, who I've been like reporting on, and I'm staying in Paris for a week, and like, we're going to hook up. Like, I'm sorry if that hurts you." And like, basically, goodbye. Hangs up. Boom. And then they had basically like a week-long affair, whatever, and then he had to keep walking on to London, and on it went. And then he wrote about later, like, they didn't stay in touch really or whatever, but he said, like, he saw them at some gala or something in Washington, D.C. a few years later, and they were together, and, like, she even came up and introduced her husband to him, and it was as though that hadn't happened. And so obviously it did, and it had some impact in their relationship, but there was this upfrontness that sort of took away the idea that it was an affair. In that it still is, but it changes the equation when one person is saying, you know, like when you bring consciousness to it. So therefore, to me, what it brought back to me, just to finish that thought, is that it's not like that had happened as one thing. If I was the husband in that situation, my question would have been like, why? And she might have said, like, you've been boring in bed. You're like watching too much porn and you're not giving me enough attention, or like our life has become stale and I felt like I was pushing and I gave up or whatever. And then he might have said, well, screw you, I'm done. Or he could have said, you know what? Like, yeah, I actually need to improve. What you did hurt me and may be wrong, but maybe I also have a part in this because we're in a relationship. And then what does he do? So therefore, I think it's the why, not the what.
Interesting.
What do you think about that?
I think that's amazing that he was able to react to it that way.
Yeah.
On the other hand, I don't think where I am right now in my life, I would react the same way. I feel like if one of us felt like they were going to have an entanglement, I think that's a conversation that should happen beforehand, not when the entanglement is happening.
Or not when you're like in the hotel room and you're like, oh my God, like I'm about to bust a nut here. You're like, correct. I get that.
Yeah.
And I agree with that 100%. And I'm just imagining what this woman's husband would have, like how he reacted. At the end of the day, they stayed together. Will Smith and Jada Pinkett Smith have stayed together. In some ways, when you look at them, like they're talking about this now, but this is a 4-year-old event. So, and like when you watch the way
literally the thing about it too is like she was more comfortable with it because I think she dealt with it, but he looked in some ways very uncomfortable.
And this may just be for me as a man, seeing another man in that situation or whatever, that I don't know that it was that he was so uncomfortable with what happened. Okay. It's that this was our private thing that we dealt with. And now I'm telling the entire world. And Jada, they're on season 3. She's been digging into basically putting her own love life, personal sex life, all this stuff out to the public. That's not Will's thing. So now he's basically like been dragged into, now I have to come talk about this thing to the entire freaking world. Like, I know. That's uncomfortable. I'm sorry. Like, and because it happened to him, he's like, and he also knows, like, now, even look what happened. He's probably smart enough to know that he was going to get as much crap as she was going to get. Like, what's wrong with you? Like, leave the woman or whatever. But she's rad. I wouldn't leave her if I was Will Smith over it. Like, the same reason why if you had an entanglement, I wouldn't leave you over it.
Oh, good to know. But just so you know, I would leave you over it.
Okay, fair enough.
There's a real power in just knowing somebody's riding with you no matter what. And you really can't know that
until you go
through some stuff.